be from eligible voters. That's the U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment, Section 2. Number 3, the number of votes counted must equal the number of voters who voted. And number 4, there can be no more than 1 in 125,000 ballots in error by the voting system. That's from the Help America Vote Act of 2002. Whereas the analysis of the California 2022 general election has uncovered evidence of massive inaccuracies that appear to violate both federal and state laws, including 5,886,198 ineligible or uncertain registration violations found within the California State Voter Roll Database. 2,776,939 votes cast by ineligible or uncertain registrations. 123,785 more votes counted than voters who voted. No one knows who cast them. 2,776,849 apparent voting violations in excess of the legal standard of system accuracy for a valid federal election. Maximum allowable system errors for the 2022 general election was 90. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Charlene Phipps. Certification, as defined by law, is an attestation of accuracy and compliance. The certification of the 2022 election appears to have been fraudulent and illegal. Whereas these findings trample legal accuracy, requirements of the voting system during a federal election. Whereas the intent of the voters must be known factually before certification can be lawfully conducted. Whereas the 2022 general election appears to have been invalid, depriving us of the guaranteed protection of our natural rights under a government duly and provably chosen by us, the American people, resulting in incalculable damage to our families, our way of life, and the fabric of these United States. Therefore, we call upon our representatives to provide relief to the people and the assurance of domestic tranquility by joining us in demanding a valid 2024 general election that upholds these existing laws and equitable principles of law. Number 1, proof of citizenship, identity, and eligibility were required to register and vote, not anonymous attestation. 2, voter rolls certified, accurate, and available for public review and challenge 30 days before the start of early voting. 3, hand-marked secure ballots similar to currency, where imaging technology is used for tabulation. The security features must be verifiable in the ballot image. 4, systems, machines, security measures, infrastructure, and conduct are required to be compliant with federal law for fraud prevention regarding risk assessment, certification, testing, and implementation. 5, adjudication must be signed off by party, candidate, and trained citizen witness after being given full and effective observation rights. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Troxel. Number 6, ballots, regardless of entry source, election operations and systems must maintain end-to-end chain of custody from voter to vote count to final canvass, including auditability and witness transfer of the paper records. Number 7, a National Institute of Standards and Technology compliant, randomized, statistically valid end-to-end audit with a 95% confidence level of all elections pursuant to the 14th Amendment, Section 2, must be performed. If the total of unique variances above is more than 10% of the margin of victory, a new election must be held in the state for those candidates affected, unless the issues can be provably corrected by a manual hand recount and a full review of the records. Number 9, waiver of requirements is not allowed. Only end-to-end system compliance from registration through certification can guarantee the intent of the people is accurately recorded. Be it resolved that the Vacaville City Council stand in support with the concerns and remedies presented here. We implore the California legislature, federal legislators, law enforcement, federal and state prosecutors, judges, and both California Secretary of State and county registrars of voters to cooperate and fulfill these firm requests of the people. That concludes the resolution. Please visit the United Sovereign Americans website to learn more about our organization and our goal to restore valid elections throughout the country. Uniteforfreedom.com. That's unite, the number 4, freedom.com. And we just ask that the City of Vacaville council members review these resolutions and submit them for an agenda item on the next council meeting date. May I hand these to the clerk? Thank you.
Hi, City Council, City staff. As you may know, Vacaville's cannabis program has sat on the bench for some years now. But I believe that now is the time to revisit and proceed with the previous council's recommendation to deploy this approved program. This document here is Vacaville's commercial cannabis business ordinance that was approved by council in 2021. Although this document contains much information that responds to the concerns some may have, tonight I'll be concentrating on one of the most notable concerns the council has voiced to me, which is the cost to deploy and manage this program and how much money the city will benefit from the taxes. Now, I've mentioned the potential financial benefits before, but now new data from the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration was released this last month, actually, showing the existing 14th retail dispensaries in Solano County pooling in roughly $19.8 million in total sales as of June this year, a 4.7 increase from last year. Even our neighbor Davis has brought in about 6.1 million of that total with their 4 stores. Now, of course, some cities will bring in more than others, but if we average this out, it comes down to roughly 1.4 million taxable sales per dispensary as of June, and potentially 2.8 per dispensary by the end of the year. With Vacaville's cannabis ordinance currently set to allow for 2 dispensaries, total taxable sales can be from 5.6 million or more a year, which can provide the city over 840 in tax revenue. And that's not even including the revenue received from cannabis applications, licensing, and permit fees. This money can be used to fund a variety of city projects like the warming center or other community projects that may need additional funds throughout the year. It is simply money our residents already spend, but instead of forcing them to spend it in other cities that already have dispensaries, we can launch our own, bringing those sales and tax revenue back into our own community. Let's not postpone this any more years. I urge the council to revisit the currently approved commercial cannabis business ordinances and fulfill its recommendation to adopt these ordinances and draft a resolution to establish the application and regulatory process as a priority for 2025. Thank you. Have some
Please.
Good evening. Grumpy old man finally back here. I know you missed me. One thing I want to mention about the best plants, I know that that's not currently a hot topic right now, but you know, the builders of them are still moving behind the scenes. I remember a couple weeks ago it was announced that NextEra Energy told the county that the plant that they want to build, that they were going to go and seek PUC approval for it, you know, where that legislation where they can avoid going through the county. Well, it's worth noting that our assembly representative, we thought, Assemblymember Wilson, voted for that legislation that would allow a corporation to go around the county. And perhaps you, ladies and gentlemen, would like to inquire as to Member Wilson just why she thought that was a good idea. Was this like a lot of other uh, laws that come out of Sacramento or Washington, very poorly thought out, voted upon by people who just took the recommendations of their staff members who perhaps didn't know the depths of what they're into anyway? Because as we all now know, because of our best wars, we know that battery storage plants are not green energy. Far from it. It behooves us to go ahead and get the assembly member on board. Maybe submit some legislation to reverse this course because she did it to us. Thank you.
Good evening. Ryan Misano of MisanoNews.com. You likely have never seen an owner of a television station, a newspaper, a radio station, or a social media company attend your meeting, but I'm the only media owner that I know of within 100 miles. That's disturbing because an out-of-reach media is a media that likely is lying to us. I appreciate businessmen, but I would caution on marijuana that we examine the record on China, where a 3,000-year dynasty after the Sassoon family brought opium into China, ushering in communism, which murdered 60 million Chinese. Psychotropic drugs are always a bad idea. First, I agree with those encouraging voting reform. We need paper ballots, some same-day balloting, repeal the 19th Amendment. You must show valid ID to vote. That will fix matters considerably. Cognitive dissonance, sometimes people hold a core belief that is very strong. When they are presented with evidence that works against that belief, the new evidence cannot be accepted. It would create a feeling that is extremely uncomfortable called cognitive dissonance. And because it is so important to protect the core belief, they will rationalize, ignore, and even deny anything that doesn't fit in with the core belief. So a lot of the information that I am not even going to be able to share tonight, because if I did, it would create a riot. I'm trying to pave the way for people opening their minds and not allowing the landmines that we've been conditioned with since we were born to interrupt the free flow of information. What I'm about to say will be very controversial, and that's because the propaganda that has been fed to every one of us since we were born. An earlier speaker mentioned the dangers of communism. I agree. Communism put to death 100 million in 100 years. It was the worst death machine in world history. The last two forums open to millions of us who have been banned by Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and are being censored by newspapers are city halls and school boards. And even these are vanishing because I was just arrested 3 times in Sacramento in the past 3 months. You didn't see that in the media because the media and the city councils are all controlled by the same people. But I was arrested because I said something that the city council did not like about a protected group that runs everything and does not like to be named. Now, the thing is with free speech, if you don't like what's being said, you are free to introduce facts to refute what is being said, but you are not free to silence and shut down the speaker.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Or 10.
10 seconds?
Yeah.
Okay. In conclusion, our media is dominated by 1% who have 4% are puppets, 5% of us are responding to that, and 90% are asleep. Thank you.
Oh, shoot. Advise if that don't work. All right, I want to close public comment. No public hearings. Now move to business from the floor.
All right, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor and members of the City Council. This first item before you tonight is the business item 9A. This is a resolution for a professional services agreement with Landify Construction for a bike park in our Centennial Park. Hugh Hesterman, David Nam, and a representative from Landify are here to give you a presentation on this.
There we go. Thank you, City Manager. Good evening. You've seen us before, a little over a year ago. My name is Hugh Hesterman. I'm the city's senior park planner with the Department of Parks and Recreation. And to my far left is Jonathan Bryden with Landify ECT Corporation. About a year ago, we came before this council to ask for an MOU, approval of an MOU, to allow the city to negotiate and look into the feasibility of construction of a portion of the city of the Centennial Park Master Plan through a unique funding operation. And so we're going to So we have a very short presentation just to remind you of what our proposal is. The resolution is asking for your consideration and approval of a formal agreement to actually enter into the construction of Phase 1A at Centennial Park. We have a professional design team that has been put together by Landify ECT. It includes Helix, a environmental planning organization. They also did the master plan for Centennial Park, which will be going to the Planning Commission next week. Alpine Bike Parks is professional bike park designer and builder, and Somas Engineering, a professional civil engineering team. So I'm going to ask Jonathan to give a very brief explanation of their company, their company again. Again, this is information that you received a little over a year ago. So Jonathan, please.
Good evening. So Landify, in a few words, we are a group present in Europe. We started operations back in the 70s in the Paris area of France by reusing, upscaling inert, meaning non-polluted dirt coming from construction works to create useful things for the communities. We are now managing close to 15 million tons of excavated soil per year on more than 20 projects all over Europe. And we created our subsidiary back in 2021 to develop the concept in California. We are currently working on 20 projects in California, and we've been working with the city of Vacaville on this bike park project, on this Centennial Park project for the past 3.5 years. And we're very happy to present today the project to City Council. The business model that we developed is fairly simple. People have moved soil from one place to the other through history. What we are creating out of this is a way to actually create a win-win situation for everyone. We are locating projects that are close to dynamic construction zones, and we are intercepting flows of dirt that generally or naturally would go to landfills or quarries. To use that dirt instead of filling a hole, to use that dirt to put it into productive use. By doing this, we are generating revenue through the tipping fees that are paid by the construction world, the same tipping fees they would be paying if they were going to landfills or quarries. But with those tipping fees, we're capable of funding the projects that we're delivering for the community. So it's a new way of thinking of how to fund land use developments. And so this is really what we've been developing, again, since the 70s in Europe, and we are starting to develop in California.
Thank you, Jonathan. So again, just for a very quick overview on the project that we are considering right now, the bike park area is about 35 acres in the northeast corner of Centennial Park. We'll show you a map in a moment. The community has been involved greatly throughout the Centennial Park master planning itself, but specifically tonight we're talking about the bike park itself. Two well-attended community meetings were held, one on February 10th and another one on March 5th. We have next steps programmed for the actual presentation of the park master plan to the Planning Commission next week. And also at that same meeting, we will be presenting the draft CEQA document, which is a mitigated neck deck document. This is the draft Centennial Park Master Plan. I realize it's a small scale for you, but we just want to show you the general location. To your right on the drawing is north, and to the left is Browns Valley Parkway. So In the northeast corner is the red dashed area. That's the location of the Centennial Park Bike Park. And then to the bottom portion of the drawing, which would be to the east, is the Puda South Canal. This is an aerial view of the same site, same red dashed line, but looking the other way. It's looking sort of in a southeast direction. And you can see the Puda South Canal at the far extent of the red dashed line. And approximately in the middle there is the existing maintenance road that has both a city sewer and PG&E trunk system in there. So tonight, through the efforts of the MOU, Landify held multiple meetings and lots of interaction with staff and with the professional design team to come up with this concept plan for the bike park. Again, this is the northeast corner of the park, and we'll just walk you through it real quickly here if I can. There it is. You always need a mouse when you don't have one. Along the northern boundary is Allison Parkway, which enters from this point here. That would be the formal entrance. Is that showing up on the screen? Okay. Back up. I guess our pointer's not working for some reason. So on the far right, see it now? Okay. Ah, wonderful.
See this? Look here, laser pointer.
Thank you.
So there you go. Just keep the thing over here.
Thank you. I think that must be what David was trying to tell me. Thank you, David. So on the far right, not the pointer, but the laser pointer would be where the formal entrance is coming in from the north off of the existing Allison Parkway. It would, a paved road would come in like this, climb the hill and go up to the drop-off point with ADA parking and access for drop-off areas. If you were to turn right, you'd go into the formal parking area. That would be where the day people would normally use for day use, and there would be an expansion area further out of there that would be for overflow parking for special events. Within the bike park itself, there will be a small restroom building, a playground area in this general area, multiple picnic areas, and then off to the right are the two, not flow trails. What am I? Yeah, thank you. The two pump tracks. The smaller one would be for the beginners and intermediate, and then a more larger scale one for off to the right here. Those would be paved with asphalt. Everything else is pretty much dirt surfaced. The hill would be largely located in the center, which is where Landify comes in and building this new mountain, if you will, of imported soil. And then we'd have multiple flow trails that would come off of a lower point here and then an upper area here for the more advanced riders. They could go either to the south, down toward the creek, or toward the north off this way, and then return trip back up to the various landing spots. Additional landing spots down here for observers and a little bit of picnicking. A maintenance road around the perimeter could also be used for emergency access. That would come all the way around. It could also be used for part of the trail system that would be added to Centennial Park overall. So the overall site, as I mentioned, is about 35 acres. We would keep our distance from the Puda South Canal over here so as to not create any impacts there, and also retain a good distance from the existing north tributary of Horse Creek, which continues off to the west. So that's pretty much the summary of what the amenities are for the bike park. I'm going to go on to the actual opportunity for, see, the recommendation is to look at the agreement The agreement would be for Landify and the city to enter into a written agreement to build that portion of Phase 1A, which is the bike park area. Timing on that would probably take anywhere from 5 to 8 years. That's an unknown, but we want to make sure we underpromise. It largely depends upon how fast the dirt is available. So I'd be happy to entertain any questions at this point in time.
Thank you so much. I guess we have first comment from Mike Soul.
Thanks for the presentation. I do think that this is dope. But the dopeness level kind of went down when you're like maybe up to 8 years, but I understand as a cost-effective approach. Questions are the soil that will be imported to our area. What quality control checks, what rate assurances are there to ensure there's no invasive species that can be problematic for the neighbors in that particular environment, as well as any hazardous material that could be in the soil?
Yeah, so all the materials that are going to come on the site will be tested. So sampling is required from any person or any company that needs to that wants to come and deposit soil. And then you've got several checkpoints on site to ensure that the soil is compatible. And so that's also people on site that have the responsibility to check every truck coming in to make sure that we know where the dirt is coming from. It's make sure that it's been fully tested and that we have all the samplings and it's compatible with the use that we want for the bike park. So same thing in terms of chemicals, in terms of invasive species, all of that is obviously very key for us. We're more incentivized than anyone to make sure that everything is done properly. And this is really our responsibility and our know-how in terms of what we've been doing throughout the years to really ensure that all the dirt that comes in is clean and compatible with the use that we want for the dirt.
Doctor?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. Wow, that's loud. I'm really excited about this. I think it's going to be a huge hit with everybody. My question is more along the lines of when you're trucking this dirt in and out, what is your planned route to bring it in? Are you going to go through the park, or are you going to go through the residential area in the back where there are some homes that back up to Allison Parkway off of Vacaville?
Yeah, good question. So the actual Phase 1A, which is the bike park area, trucks will be following standard truck routes coming off of Interstate 80 or I-5 and coming down Vacaville using Allison Parkway to enter. So they would be actually coming into the park right here at this entrance here and then diverting up onto there. So that is, we do have a truck management plan or truck routing plan that would keep them all under their proper routes.
Okay, and that, I'm assuming that it'll all be fenced in so that there aren't kids playing in the area when the trucks are going by. I mean, I'm sure there's some excited kids, but you've got a plan for that too, correct?
We do, yes.
And while that's happening, I know, Mr. Hesterman, you've been fantastic at replying to some of the comments that have come through email about Centennial. Thank you very much for that. But there's no indication that there's any need for any trucks to be along the northwest side in that kind of nature area that is west of number 32, that overflow parking area. We're not going to have any vehicles or anything going over there.
Right, you're talking about this area over here?
Yes.
Yeah. So Phase 1, absolutely. Later phases that we'll probably have that, but tonight all we're talking about is Phase 1A, which is in the northeast corner.
Thank you. That was it.
Thank you for the information. I just have a couple of questions. It looks like a great project. So you mentioned that the roads would be mostly dirt, and then I see trees. So is the rest of it going to be grass, or what's the ground cover on the rest of it?
Sure. It'll be a combination. We will be planting at least 200 trees in this with this particular part of the project. It'll be largely dirt surfaced. The management of that from keeping the weeds under control, we're in the process. We haven't completed it, but a operations and management plan. We're exploring the use of goats, of other types of friendly, non-spray kind of methods. All of those things it may end up being a mixture of operations on how to keep it weed-free and
The dust down?
and the dust down. Yeah,
Right.
the routes themselves, the flow trails will be treated with a hardener surface so when you pack the dirt down, it actually will congeal, if you will, together so the material doesn't create dust. In the construction process, though, there will be watering trucks available on site all the time to keep the dust under control, just like you would with any other construction project.
And then I think I saw in the notes, it's going to be between 40 and 50 feet high. Is that correct at the top, at the highest?
It may be a little bit higher than that, yeah.
All right. And then in the end, then does the city take over and we're maintaining the park and everything and Landify is finished, or does phase 2 and phase 3 comes forward with that?
Yes, so if both parties are happy with how we're progressing with phase 1, we could begin the negotiations on looking at the next phase and see, how to progress onto that. Tonight is just phase 1A, but the land will be turned over, well, it is city-owned land, but the city will be 100% responsible for the operations and maintenance when the park is done. One thing that is very notable, though, is most of the bike parks that are already constructed around, at least within the United States, there's a large contingent of volunteers that help to dress the trails, to keep, they may have work days possibly where they'll come in and fix things that need to be some adjustments. So it'll be a partnership between that volunteer base and the city crews, which would have to take on typical maintenance of any city park.
Well, I know there's a lot of volunteer crews that have put in a lot of work at Pina Adobe and those trails, because they've told me about what they need to do to maintain it so that they can have that. So I understand that that's an important component. The other thing, my enthusiasm was a little dampened when I saw, 5 to 8 years, but I also understand moving that amount of dirt, it has to be sound before you're being able to use it. So that was my concern too, is the safety and how it's going to keep from having a landslide down one side that we don't want.
So yes, so all of the construction will be obviously overseen by geotechnicians. We obviously have experience. We completed more than 100 projects historically, so we know how to build mounts that are stable, and we haven't suffered any landslides on the bike parks that we delivered in Europe. So all of this know-how is a mix of in-house knowledge and obviously external consultants that will ensure that everything is stable.
And then just lastly, I'm sure you have looked around and to see what dirt is available and how far it would have to be trucked and things like that. So do you feel comfortable that there's a good supply? And the dirt around here is just like really crummy, clayey balls. It's not like nice dirt. So it doesn't pack very well.
Well, it's perfect. It's really a mix. It's going to be a mix of different kinds of dirt, and so it's really we're feeling confident. And again, it's really, this is where it's interesting. It's a partnership that we are also establishing between the city of Vacaville and Landify, and it's also in everyone's interest to see and to source dirt anywhere. So obviously any help we have, set a sales force dedicated to that, but also the city through the project, through any relationships, is also in capacity to help Landify find dirt. And again, the quicker we find the dirt, the shorter the project, and the more money we'll have to invest in the overall project. So it's really in everyone's interest to look at that. But we are feeling very confident on the region, very dynamic, lots of constructions happening in Vacaville, as you know, but also in neighboring cities. And so, but again, this is the unknown is how much, when, the timing is obviously of essence. So I'm not going to learn you anything. The economic situation is not great in terms of the construction, but things are starting to pick up, and we're seeing that lots of projects that were postponed are now going to happen. So we're very hopeful.
It sure looks like a win-win-win situation. So hopefully we can make it go forward. Thanks.
If I may also add, the dirt will be selectively utilized too. So some materials are better for the base compaction areas, and others are more friable material that'll be used for the planting areas and that sort of thing. So it'll be separated out into where it could best be used.
All right, I'll try my voice. Thank you Thank you so much for the presentation. This is an amazing project. I actually have the ability to drive by once a week now, heading on the 5 freeway towards Galt and Stockton. I see an amazing park, and I visualize those kids in our city. I like the fact this doesn't cost money to us. That's pretty. That was great a year ago you presented that. So I don't want to beat a dead horse on the fiscal part of it. The one thing that did come to my mind is kind of touched lately. How far away are you going to get soil? Are you getting out of the state? Are you finding our region? Because just last week, there's a great article in the Wall Street Journal. I'm not going to name the company, but there's over 110 million tons of soil that has to be unearthed because of projects they're finding where construction companies have been selling soil that was from decommissioned coal plants and problems. So now there's whole cities, I won't say where, but there's whole cities where the rate of people getting cancer is 6 times higher than everywhere else. There's kids, they're in their 20s, that have been in these houses for less than 6 years, became healthy and they're dying. So free is great. There's a cost for everything. How far away are you gonna get soil? What are the restrictions you're gonna have to make sure that we're not getting coal ash soil? Because there is about 110 million tons from one project. There's 3 other developments. They're quietly trying to get rid of the soil. So I don't want to be the new purchaser of the toxic dirt.
Thank you very much for this, Mayor. This is obviously a question we get on all of our projects, and it's key for us to answer and to make sure that we're clear on what we're doing. First of all, naturally, soil doesn't like to travel a lot because obviously it's costs for the construction world. So they're going to find the closest areas. So to answer your question, we see in terms of radius, it's no more than 50 miles. And really, that's really the maximum. And the second part is, as we discussed earlier, it's key for us to make sure that we know exactly where the soil is coming from and that we feel 100% comfortable on the excavation site that's going to bring us dirt. So we do all the analysis on the excavation site before the dirt is even excavated to make sure that we feel comfortable. So we know exactly, and we'll know per truck where the truck is coming from. We have all the traceability. We go through QR codes. So each truck driver has a QR code with all the information on the excavation site where the dirt is coming from. And so we know exactly. And then we have zones, discuss that with you. We'll have zones on the project. So we'll know exactly on this specific part of the bike park where the dirt is coming from. So this is really what we have in terms of traceability, and it's for everyone's benefit. Obviously us, because we're a project management company, we're working from one project to the other, so our track record is everything. We would be out of business if we had one counter reference on all the 100 projects that were completed. And so we're more incentivized than anyone to make sure that we know exactly where the dirt is coming from. And it's easier for us to say, sorry, we don't really know, we're not really sure, and we don't want to accept the dirt rather than accepting the dirt. This is also why it can take more time, 5 to 8 years, because we really want to make sure that we select the right dirt.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather take time than speed through and find out that I don't want to mention the states or the companies because I don't put back in a situation where we're trying. But as long as you guys have a way, do you know which states that I'm referring to, which companies that are a part of this coal ash?
Yeah.
So as long as you could find out and use that QR system to track them, free is not worth the health and safety of our community. So as long as you can track it, and I'll keep on looking. But
absolutely.
At this point, anyone make a motion? Oh, the public. Sorry. Anybody in the public want to make a comment? Okay. Yeah. Oh no, sir, they can't hear you online.
Fascinated with all this. And within a 50-mile radius, you will acquire the soil. Is that what you said?
Yes, exactly. So actually the soil we're not acquiring, we're actually being paid by the construction companies who are going to come and deposit soil rather than going further. and paying higher hauling costs.
So a QR code explains basically where it's from, analysis, et cetera, but you can actually, within 50-mile radius, go and look at where they're pulling it from. You know, and anybody in Vacaville, if they've got a serious question about it, I think, you know, that's reasonable to go and take a look, you know, so just curious.
Thank you.
I noticed that you will be getting some of the soil from certain areas outside of Vacaville. I also wanted to know regarding the plants and the trees, them being either invasive species or I would say naturally grown species in this area. Do you know which ones you will be deciding upon and why and how you'll be determining that?
Sure. So we recently completed planting about 2,000 trees in Centennial Park, all of them 100% native species, specifically because they do very well here. They take very little maintenance and very little water. So the same thing would be true here at the bike park. There may be a few trees planted up in the around the picnic area that are specifically chosen for their shade or something like that. But all the remainder ones are going to be very low maintenance native plants.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else from the public? Okay. We have a motion to approve.
A motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, City Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Members of the council, this next item before you is an presentation from Visit Vacaville and their annual report. We have Barbara Carr from our Economic Development Services Department and Elisa Pardini, the CEO of Visit Vacaville.
Good evening, Vice Mayor Ritchie and members of council. I am Elisa Pardini, President and CEO of Visit Vacaville. I'm here for the first time reporting out on an update for our efforts over the past year and some of our plans for the upcoming fiscal year.
Background: in 2004, the Vacaville Hotel Business Improvement District, the VHBID, was formed. In 2017, to modernize the VHBID, the city established a new district known as the Vacaville Tourism Marketing District, the VTMD. The purpose of the VTMD is to provide funding for marketing programs that promote the city of Vacaville as a tourism destination and to fund projects, programs, and activities that benefit hotels within the city. We want to welcome Visit Vacaville to speak on the annual 2023-2024 report. Tonight's item and presentation does not require any action by the City Council. Visit Vacaville serves as a destination marketing organization responsible for managing Vacaville's tourism marketing district. On December 14th, 2021, the Vacaville City Council adopted a resolution to renew the tourism marketing district, and it will continue through 2032. The City of Vacaville has a management agreement with Visit Vacaville, which continues until March 31st, 2025. It specifies Visit Vacaville's role to promote Vacaville as a tourism destination, and they've done a really great job. It has been my honor to attend Visit Vacaville's events and serve as ex officio on the board. Currently, the City of Vacaville has 14 hotels, with 3 new hotels currently planned, and Visit Vacaville will present their 2023-2024 annual report for council consideration, and again, no formal action is required. President and CEO Elisa Pardini, will share an update on their efforts over the last year and their plans for the next year. And please welcome President Pardini.
Thank you. So a quick look at our tourism economy as it is in Vacaville right now. When Melissa Reeves presented last year, she reported on the continued recovery of Vacaville coming out of COVID years, where the city had seen the benefits of revenge travel, and that was followed by a slight softening in demand leading into 2023. This year started out with the continuation of that trend for occupancy trending downward in 2023. But as you can see from the graph, with where you follow the blue occupancy line, we have curtailed that, and occupancy is on the rise again. We ended the previous fiscal with a slight decline in tourism or transient occupancy tax. But with the recovery at the end of this past year, we ended the year 2.5% down in occupancy, with rate holding strong at $111 and about 69 cents per room per night on average in Vacaville. So we continue to promote and bring visitors to the city. Some of the things we did over the past year to do this were we designed and published our 2024 annual visitor inspiration guide, where 10,000 copies were distributed at local hotels, attractions, City Hall, the Vacaville Chamber, DVBID, Sacramento Airport, Sacramento Convention Center, and Travis Air Force Base. The guide is our main fulfillment piece for all those requests from for visitor information, and a digital version is also available online. We have designed actually in the fall of 2023, we updated and printed a multi-fold restaurant guide for the city of Vacaville, and this piece primarily is available at all the Vacaville hotels. We print and distribute rack cards at nearly 700 visitor information racks between San Francisco and Sacramento and throughout the Napa Valley via a partner certified folder. And in early 2024, we created a new padded map. These maps can be easily written on by a front desk agent to show guests where to go in town. On one side is an overview of the city, highlighting attractions and services in town. And on the back side is a blow up of the downtown with attractions there and also information on parking. We've produced numerous print and digital ads, newsletters, and podcast episodes over the past year. This year, we made updates to the CityofVacaville.gov website, making it ADA compliant. And we've participated in and put on events throughout the year for both visitors and residents. These events have included Cows on Parade unveiling of our cow public art project. That project was spearheaded by Melissa Reeves last year before her departure. We put on Vacaville Restaurant Week, I Love Vacaville Week, the Vacaville Taco Trail Challenge this past May, Small Business Week Bingo, and the beloved Vacaville Farm to Table Dinner. In looking at the year ahead, we follow our 2023 to 2026 strategic plan. We aim to focus on optimizing our visitor economy through continuing to build and promote agricultural tourism, shopping, and outdoor adventure offerings in Vacaville, and adding information and resources for groups and business travelers, and to further develop placemaking type events that please locals and draw visitors from outside of the city. We have expanded our digital marketing campaigns with more use of graphical display ads and targeted prospecting ads in both established and emerging drive markets. And we will continue to create and distribute Visit Vacaville collateral with our 2025 visitor guide debuting this December. We are expanding on our signature events, sponsoring a film premiere at Vacaville's own Wild West Film Festival this weekend, offering an ASL signer and closed captioning options for more visitors to be able to enjoy the screenings at the film festival. For the first time, we will host a Visit Vacaville booth at Merriment on Main. And we plan to bring an in plein air artist weekend to Vacaville in April. in addition to the usual events that we host annually. So, thank you for having me for my first report out. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
So much. Silva?
Yeah, thanks for the update. The question I have is just related to how we move forward. So, like historically, if people knew Vacaville, they knew it because of the nut tree along their travels. And so I know for Visit Vacaville, we're focused on bringing outside folks to visit our town, and from a business perspective, bringing in the outside revenue into our town. Where other components really focus on how do we target our own internal markets. Is there any discussions or any like recommendations that can evolve over time to look at how we can educate or inform our small business owners or young entrepreneurs who are looking to get into establishing a business to create a place that in itself is welcoming, welcoming and pulls people off along their travels to come in to visit Vacaville and, you know, support our small businesses how they may. Similar to that of like the historic, you know, what Nut Tree served.
Yeah, well, we have a community engagement manager who goes out in the community to build those relationships with the small business so we can help amplify and promote, you know, what's going on, or that we can match them with other people in town to support each other. As far as like history itself, we were working closely with the Vacaville Museum to kind of tell that story. Can you specify?
Oh, yeah, I apologize. So like the focus is on how do we target markets beyond Vacaville to encourage them to visit Vacaville in a sense,
Yeah.
or the different amenities and small businesses that we have.
So we are primarily a drive market, but we pull from up to 5 or 6 hours away. So we can track some of the visitation to our site or to hotel bookings and see, like, you know, San Jose is a great market for us. So we could potentially promote ourselves more there and get more people to come. So that's part of how we choose placements for the advertising. With the digital advertising, there's additional options to like target certain people who show interest in or intent in visiting the area or the nearby area. And so we can serve ads to those people to put content in front of them that might interest them.
We have access to data to understand what would encourage them or encourage those particular demographics to.
So we did recently sign a contract with Zartico, which tracks mobile data, and have started pulling out reports. I know that's something that we had previously as well, but I know we had to update some of the mapping in there. Post-COVID, businesses changed, hotels opened. So we signed that contract at the start of the fiscal in July, and we're just starting to pull reports out, but I can definitely share that with any member of the council or the city manager's office.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the information. I'll just follow up on Councilmember Silva. At the farm to table dinner that we had, you know, early in the spring, I was sitting by people and, you know, the one man was from San Jose and I asked him how he heard about it, but he had said he had been working with San Jose, so he came from them. Another person was from Napa, another person was from Texas, and another person was from Dixon. So we do have people from out of town that come. So I think that you've done a good job with some of that as well. My question is, how do you get people to the actual physical location in the nut tree? Is that very busy, or does it just happen to be people who stroll by? And when I drive up when I drove up Peabody, there's a sign that says visitor information and it points. But I mean, you have to follow from Peabody a lot of arrows to get to Nut Tree for visitor information. So I'm not sure if that would direct too many people to your store. But I mean, are there many people that come for visitor information, or do you do most of it online?
Yeah, our office manager actually tracks people coming in and out as much as we possibly can. We had about just under 200 visit in the month of July, which is our busiest month it was June or July actually, for the year. And we're trending upward on visitation for sure. Obviously, we were closed for a few months during 2020, and so we were kind of building up the numbers from there. And I would say it's a nice mix of locals coming in. A lot of realtors will come in and get the guides for people moving to the area. And then we have out-of-towners who, of course, are stopping by the Nut Tree. It's a historic spot. It's a great family spot. Anyone on a road trip usually likes to stop with kids there as well. So we get a fair amount of foot traffic from the play area, Jelly Belly, Fenton's, and Pete's Coffee.
Well, it seems like every time I do go in, there is something a little bit different or something new or the cow. So I think it's a very nice face of Visit Vacaville when you go to your store.
Thank you so much.
Stockton?
Yes, thank you for the presentation. It's been very exciting seeing your enthusiasm in trying to attract things to Vacaville. And so one of the questions I had is, what are the majority of people coming to visit Vacaville for? What is your data showing you?
Yeah, it's shopping is actually one of our biggest draws, which isn't surprising. I mean, we have the shopping in Solano County, and we are also being situated on that corridor between the Bay Area and the Sacramento or Tahoe area. There is a lot of stayovers or road trippers that are spending time here. We do get a lot of business or contracted stays from either biotech or the Air Force Base, staying in town midweek. People visiting family is a high one, especially during the holidays and the summer. And then we're seeing a lot of compression actually from wine country places like Napa getting really pricey and pricing people out. And with the growth of Sassoon Valley, it kind of makes us a much more desirable destination for people who are looking for a home base to go and enjoy wine country areas in the vicinity. So that's been a benefit.
So is that kind of building upon your agricultural tourism with being close to proximity to Napa and Sassoon Valley?
Most definitely. And we're trying to build up the knowledge of all the outdoor adventure that's here with mountain biking and Lake Berryessa. And we also get some compression from sports teams competing in Davis and looking for a family-friendly destination where they can spend, go to their games, but do things outside of the games.
Okay. One of the other things that we recently talked about with the council were some of these digital billboards and them providing some use for city functions. I'm assuming that you're in communication with people from the city of Vacaville to be able to utilize and advertise some of these events. Is that accurate?
I actually would love to connect with people on that because I was trying to get some things on the digital boards that are near their nut tree, and they kept trying to make me pay for them.
Okay. I'm just curious because I know that was discussed. I'm very excited about the Wild West Film Festival. I've heard quite a bit about this, including that there are some very unique, I guess, shows that are going to be on. Are you able to talk any more about some of the material that's going to take place at the Wild West Film Festival?
Yeah, a little bit. So we are a sponsor specifically of the film festival on Saturday and the premiere of John Payne, the One-Armed Bandit, who is a disabled cowboy and telling his story. So that premieres on Saturday morning. All the films are free to anyone who wants to attend. Obviously, capacity is limited at Journey Theater. But I know the film festival is in, I believe it's 5th year here. And so the weekend was an expansion of that to include more than just the film festival and to incorporate things for families to do together or families with kids. So on Saturday, the downtown has transformed the farmers market into a Western farmers market, which should be fun. And I believe there's line dancing that evening. I think there's a $10 charge to do a line dancing instruction before the band plays with an expert teacher. And then on Sunday, the park is being taken over with a chili cook-off, chicken poop bingo, which sounds interesting, and some games, face painting, ice cream. There's going to be some vendors there with like cowboy hats and belts and stuff like that, just kind of all the Western theme.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Chapman.
Sorry. It's okay. Thank you. Great report. Thank you for your very first one. Outstanding. Great job. I was going to dovetail on to what Councilmember Wiley was stating about individuals coming in from other places to appreciate and enjoy, some of the offerings here. Doing what's the name of the sculpture, the angel downtown? Help me.
Touch the Sky.
Yeah, Touch the Sky. I was standing there, I met some individuals from Sacramento. One individual had reached out to one of his friends and brought his son, and we was chatting, and I said, well, what part of the city do you live? Oh, no, we're from Sacramento. And I said, you came down for this? Oh, yeah. We have many people that are into the arts, and so I don't think you're doing a fine job marketing the city and our offerings, but I think that's an area that could stand more marketing, and we're bringing more arts into the community, and I just think that would be so positive. And being so close to the city, San Francisco, many people moving out of the city coming our way, I'm sure that that would pull many families downtown and into the area. The farm to table, I didn't get to enjoy the full meal, but it was great. It was great. Really enjoyed, the camaraderie, the conversation, the network, and it was a very nice day. So what you're doing, you are being, you're very effective with what you're doing, and I appreciate your efforts.
Thank you so much. The sculpture was definitely a collaboration between downtown and the city, getting some art down there. But of course, we were out there to support, and that artist was recently on our podcast. So if you want to learn more about him or how he made the sculpture, there'll be an episode. Yeah.
Jason?
Yeah, well, most people have already touched on different things I want to talk about with art. So I'll just say you had some big established shoes to fill in your role. And I think it was last year you and I've been seeing Kaya like everywhere lately. So getting out in the community, being very proactive. So good job and thank you for the report.
Thank you so much.
I'll be very quick. Don't want to kind of repeat everybody, but it's been great. The tourism, the agritourism, something's very interesting. I had a meeting with a person from Napa. They're having a very interesting problem we capitalize on. They're realizing the average cost to stay in Napa, it's like averages $500 a day to have fun now per person. So they're doing a lot of interesting things to try to lower the costs. Companies are now joining together to kind of lower the burden of the cost to be in a city. Let's capitalize on it. Why can we kind of really get to the agritourism of Sassoon Valley has made worldwide news. It was in the Wall Street Journal, National Geographics. Like, we have the newest wine region in the world in our backyard. So sip in Sassoon, stay in Vacaville. Sip in Napa, stay in Vacaville. We can cross-pollinate and say, market people, hey, go have fun in Napa, have fun in Sassoon, but stay here. And when you're here, then we can really try to open the doors of restaurants, activities. And I want to make sure we engage. We have members of One Plaza. Back was a lot of cool stuff. We have the Nut Tree, we have downtown. People can choose to stay in different places of Vacaville where the hotels are. I want to make sure that Visit Vacaville means visit the whole city. There's a lot of areas that can really find a lot of boom from what's happening and the burdens of people coming from Sacramento to here. And people from Sacramento are not going to go to Napa to drink if they know Sassoon Valley is absolutely amazing. They will stop, drink there, and hopefully not drive too drunk to Vacaville and stay here. And we can really become a spot to tourism to draw Sacramento. So why go to Napa? Come here. Go to Sassoon, come to Vacaville. I think we're in a great opportunity between what COVID did to migrate people around the Bay Area to Sacramento. We can get that cross-pollination back and forth and really make Vacaville a place where to really kind of rake in income.
I definitely agree. We are building those connections with all the Sassoon vintners right now. And that article with Fairfield Sassoon, it was the result of a media fam tour. And so we will definitely be looking at bringing some media here to have similar experiences and tell more of a Vacaville story.
Thank you so much. This is not an action item, this is information. Oh, yeah, sorry. The public, sorry. Open to the public. Any questions? Oh, yeah.
Over the last several weeks, I've been walking through some of the neighborhoods of Vacaville and driving up through some of the hills and all. And I was just entranced by the beauty of this area. Not only the beauty of the area, but the beauty care of their properties. You know, you can go to the apartment buildings and they're well kept. There's a lot of trees around and people have assumed not only a residence here, but a symbiosis here with what is the nature and not only the nature of the physical aspects, but the nature of the type of community that Vacaville is. Now, I've said before, I live in Dixon. I come all the way down here because I love to see what you folks are doing. And it's just extraordinary that you're thinking proactively and how you can make things better. I would recommend to anybody coming in to entertain themselves or to go to shopping centers, before you go home, go up through the neighborhoods, drive through the hills. There's a lot of beauty here. I would want to move here if I had the option. And, you know, I mean, I do have the option. Where I'm at now is my livelihood and everything else. But I mean, if I were a young person, like my high school buddy that I found years ago, I said, Tom, where did you live? And he was acting sheriff or acting police chief of Vallejo at one point. And I said, well, Tom, where do you live? We were raised in Vallejo. He says, well, I live in Vacaville. He says, Vacaville. Oh, yeah, that's that little town we used to drive by to Sacramento, like 80,000 people and agriculture. He says, no, it's much more. And it is much more. People need to see what Vacaville is as far as their farsightedness and the beauty that they're holding on to.
You move here.
I'm 75 years old, got a whole family, got a business, you know, so.
Move it too.
Anyone else from the public? Yes.
I hope this is within the subject. Back in 2017, I had made a commitment to the city to build a hotel. And
That's not.
so that would be off topic as basically who I was working with Don at the time.
That's not part of the conversation.
Okay,
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Josefina Ponce, and I'm a business owner here in Vacaville. I've been our family's been in business there at our location since 1979. The name of the restaurant is Azteca Restaurant. And so we've been serving now about, so probably 6 generations in the Peabody Shopping Center. And I like all this idea. These are great ideas. But I hear about downtown, I hear about Nut Tree. I think it's time to bring Peabody in, bring Peabody into the Vacaville, to revive Peabody. And Mike Silva has brought that idea across to me and is bringing it across to our shopping center to revive our Peabody shopping center. I think it's time. We were dead for a long time. And now our center is independently owned. We all different owners. We're not owned by a big shopping center where there's only one owner. We're all independently owned, small minority businesses. And so we need the city. I'm asking you all to help us revive our shopping center. It's coming alive, it's coming alive and it's looking really nice. But we need some more help, the outside of the road, the gardening and all that. We need some planting, some plants, and to revive it. And we need also the magazine. You've come to visit my place, and I guess I wasn't ready, but I think we're ready now. We're coming to get ready to get our name out there. After what, almost 50 years of being in business, that's a long time. And a lot of people say, "Well, we didn't know you've been back there." Well, yeah, we've been back there since 1979, and it's time that we be known now. And I want the city of Vacaville to acknowledge that. We've been paying from our customers tax money that's been put into the city of Vacaville all these years. And it's time that we be acknowledged. We're back there. We've been there working hard. And we've been giving to the community, to our customers. Our repeat customers have been coming, and we've been giving our services, our food, the stores, County Square Market. We have a church back there. We have so many other businesses that have been given to the community. It's time that the city of Vacaville acknowledge the Peabody Shopping Center. We are there, we're alive, and we're not going away. And we want you guys, we want your help to help us beautify it.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anyone else in public? Okay. Closing public comment. Thank you so much. Okay. Now we're moving on till 9C.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council. This next item before you is a resolution approving negotiated MOU agreements with 3 city bargaining groups. We have Jessica Bose, Ken Matsumia, and Dimple Patel from our HR department who's going to make the presentation tonight.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and Council. Tonight we're bringing 3 agreements for your approval. 2 are groups that your negotiating team has worked with to get agreement. The other one is the department head group, which you gave direction on. And all of those agreements expire on 10/31/24. So we're bringing them to you prior to expiration. They include the Vacaville Managers Organization, the Administrative Managers Group, and like I said, the department heads. The city manager and city attorney have their individual contracts that have been approved by council. Within those contracts, it dictates that both of these positions shall receive certain benefits similar to what the department heads get, and that includes COLAs, as you'll see. So next slide. Our process is a data-driven one. We look at comparable agencies, we look at CPI, we look at any recruitment and retention issues we're having internally. We accept the union proposals and analyze them and cost them out and bring them and present them to you. And then we obviously look at city budget. So as we know, we're in deficit spending right now. So you'll see that these contracts are for a 1-year term due to that. Negotiating team receives the direction from the council, and then we meet with the groups several times until we reach what's called a tentative agreement, meaning the group understands that the agreement we're reaching is something that their members will approve. And then we get to bring it to council like we are tonight for final approval. You'll also see attached to the staff report is the strike-through versions of all of these agreements so that you can see exactly what is changing. The terms and conditions for all 3 groups are a 1-year deal. So it is through October 31st of 2025. And again, that's due to our deficit spending. It's in line with what we're doing with the budget, taking it 1 year and double checking as we go into budget next year. And then also cost of living of 4% to all 3. For VMO, there's an additional increase to uniform and safety equipment allowances as stated here. 1 is to protective clothing, 1 is to uniform allowance, and 1 is safety pant allowance. These all 3 impact different classifications within VMO. And then for AMG, the addition of a notary pay, there's about 3 AMG employees that we utilize as notaries for city-related business only. We do have some cleanup as we do in most of our agreements when we bring them forward. There could be grammatical errors or clarification on a process. Some things that are non-monetary don't change the intent, but just cleaning that up. Next slide. All of these touch on our strategic plan initiatives for A, B, and C, as well as maintaining effective and efficient services. The fiscal impact for these groups is $685,000 in the current year, a total of $1.03 million over the term, 60% of which is general fund, and the remainder is split up throughout the departments that each individual employee is assigned to, and some of their funding comes from other places. All costs include roll-up costs that reflect increase for pension costs, and that would apply for any kind of unfunded liability in the future. So that's called out. And then finally, on behalf of the negotiating team, we would just like to thank the groups and the council for the work put into this to get these agreements here tonight. And our recommendation is by simple motion, adopt the subject resolution.
Thank you so much. Questions from the council? Jeanette?
Thank you for all your work on this. I did talk with some of the officers at National Night Out at Andrews Park about uniforms because, you know, it was such a hot day and some people had short sleeves and long sleeves. And I said, you know, do you have to do your own cleaning? Do you send it out? You know, what is there, are you told to wear long or short? So just kind of conversing about the choices that they have in their uniforms. But this uniform allowance, it's just going to go to every officer that qualifies. They don't have to bring in a receipt. I bought this uniform. Is that correct?
These aren't for police officers. They're just for the VMO unit.
Managers? Okay.
There are some people in that unit that wear uniforms, and correct, they just get the allowance and they go out and spend it how they want on what pieces of clothing they like.
I think in that one thing, there was a list of who was in that. And I guess, okay, yes.
There is a specific list in the MOU.
All right, thank you.
Okay, open to public. No comments from public? By simple motion, we adopt the resolution.
Motion approved 9C.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? No. Thank you so much. All right. Now we move on to 9D.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of the council. This final item before you tonight is discussion and approval of utilizing 1040 Mason Street as our 2024-2025 Winter Warming Center. The Assistant City Manager, Georgianne Meggersmith, is accompanied by Officers McCabe and Stefanoni from their crew division with the police department to give you a presentation and an update on last year's program and recommendations for going forward tonight.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and members of the council. Like the city manager said, we are here to talk about possibly utilizing the facility at 1040 Mason Street as the Winter Warming Center. Even though we're warm weather right now, we do know that the weather's going to get cold sooner than later. A little bit of background for you. On October 10th, 2023, we did provide council an update on the Winter Warming Center plans. We had been hearing from members of the public, members of the faith-based community, coming to council meetings, asking us what our plans were. So we did come to you with some possibilities, including using the former Greyhound bus depot at 1040 as a potential location as a Winter Warming Center. On December 12th, 2023, the City Council did approve reallocating $50,000 of American Rescue Plan Act funds from the Housing and Homelessness Priority Area to the Winter Warming Center. Hello, there we go. A little bit more background and some preparations. There were a number of reasons why we like the 1040 Mason Street location. Some of those included, it was a vacant city property that was already in good working order. It was also a near central location in Vacaville. It had an ADA accessible path of travel. It had on-site parking, and it had a covered space for sheltering animals, which is frequently a topic that comes up when we're looking at our unhoused community. So what we did was we started collaborating with our faith-based community to identify warming center attendants to stay overnight in the warming center when it was open. We looked at some trash from the Cliffside Park and Ride and some poor behavior from staff, not from staff, but from folks that were using the park and ride as a kind of a camping location. People were camping in their cars. And so one of the things that we did happened after kind of we had been opening the warming center, but our public works staff and director worked really closely with Caltrans. And as a result, we've been able to close that park and ride. And so what I am hoping is that we've been able to kind of quell some of the issues that stemmed from that park and ride center. We do have our crew officers here who can speak a little bit to this next point, that where we committed their resources to keeping the users of the center safe and the surrounding areas when we did have to activate it. You want to speak to that?
I gotta turn that up. So the Cliffside Park and Ride was a pretty big issue when it came to quality of life and just issues within that shopping center. We had people camping up there. We had narcotics complaints, trash piling up, shopping carts, bicycles, you name it, you probably saw it up there. We made it a point to address that park and ride because from that park and ride is where a lot of the issues stemmed from. People coming down into the shopping center, sitting in front of businesses, panhandling, taking carts from the businesses, leaving trash everywhere. So the efforts that we took to help get that park and ride closed down because it clearly wasn't being utilized as a park and ride anymore. I think the closest it got was maybe the construction for the apartments that are going up there on the corner. Some of the workers would park there, but other than that, I don't think anybody left their car up there and carpooled to work. It was not being used how it should. It was creating issues. So Sergeant Stefanoni worked close, like I said, with our courtyard, and we were able to get that shut down with the help of Caltrans and CHP, which actually now there's nothing up there. We still periodically check it, probably once a week. There's no camps being set up there. There is nobody hanging out there. There's no trash. There's no debris. So I guess with that said, the park and ride was probably one of the bigger issues. We did have people that would migrate through there on a daily basis and go up from the warming center occasionally, but since being shut down, it has not been an issue.
So the warming center was operational as of November 1st, 2023. We did not need to activate it until January 2024. We only needed to activate it 5 nights based on the triggers in the emergency operations protocol. Approximately 58 people used the center over 5 nights that it was activated. That does include duplicates, meaning, over the 58 people, some of those people used it multiple times over the 5 nights. We did have I had asked crew to kind of run the calls for service to see if there were calls for service over the whole month of January. There were only 2, one of which was a vehicle fire in the park and ride. So it was really minimal impact. And then, so looking at this year, we looking to kind of follow the same operational plan as we did last year. We have $30,000, $950 left available from the original $50,000 that was allocated to the warming center last year. So that balance could be used for the upcoming winter season. And so with that being said, we're looking, asking you to approve utilizing the Mason Street Center as the warming center again this year. I am sure you have some questions and comments, and we are here to answer those for you.
Thank you so much. Jason?
Yeah, I just had a couple questions. First one going back to like the calls for service, kind of like down in 3 different parts. Like what was the typical average for calls for service before the warming center and the park and ride shut down? And then like afterwards, I said 2 calls for service in the month of January. Is that just to the warming center or is that to the whole shopping center itself?
That was for the shopping center itself. Most of the calls were self-initiated calls for 1059s, or what we call area checks of the area, just for that particular month that I looked into.
Okay, yeah, because we got an email saying there was a lot more calls for service than that. I just wanted to, yeah, get actual data for that. And then I saw that, yeah, there's 58 people total that used it, which is good. So, yeah, I mean, especially only 5 nights. Were any of those nights, you know, if they're weekdays or weekends?
I think it was a combination of both, actually. I don't
Okay.
have the dates in front of me, but I think it crossed weekends and weekdays.
Okay, yeah, because I know last year when we talked about this, one of the biggest concerns was interactions between the school children and potential homeless in the shopping center. So I was just trying to see how much overlap time there was between when the school was open and when the shelter was open. So if it was open over weekends, obviously they're not interacting children on the weekend because it wouldn't be open.
There were definitely weekdays.
Okay, and my last question is, I know the cooling center was used at Ulatis over the summer and the units F and G there. Is there any pros or cons of going back here to the Greyhound bus station or possibly utilizing those same units there at Ulatis? Because I know during the day, the library is effectively a warming center. And then if we had the warming center in that same complex there, because I know there's no businesses, but it's a little bit closer to residential. Is there pros or cons of possibly using either of those for warming centers?
So the Ulatis library is currently closed.
Oh, yeah,
It's
for the
not
construction.
It's like a year and a half, I think it's going to be closed, if I'm not mistaken. I would say probably the biggest con is if you use that center for a warming center at night, what you're going to get is what we've had an issue with that we actually just got under control, was people living in the parking lot in their cars and creating garbage and creating issues for, especially over the summer with the day camps like the Lego camp and stuff. We had a lot of complaints from parents, and that took a while to clean up and get out of there, and a lot of work with other city agencies or entities to clean up that parking lot, because it did become an issue with people camping, leaving trash, vicious dogs, well, seemingly vicious dogs that are living in the vehicles with the occupants. I would see that as probably one of the most negative parts of trying to put the warming center there.
Okay, so this is, I mean, there's no real ideal spot for this without building a brand new building. So like your guys' opinion, this is probably the best place to put it for what we currently have available.
I would say with the location where the Greyhound station is on Mason, it's centrally located. It's compliant for people that are ADA. It's got the covering and to protect pets, because a lot of people will not utilize the center without having somewhere to put their pet. That's a big issue that we run into. They tend to care more for their animals than they do themselves. So having a place for the pets is key, because it gets them into the center as well.
Yeah, it's actually a state requirement now to have a spot for pets. So anyway, appreciate the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Sarah?
Thank you. You had mentioned the triggers. I want to see if we can address that or touch on it, modify it possibly. Right now, it has to be 103 or 5? 3?
Are you, so the triggers to open a cooling center?
I'm sorry, that was the cool, that's hot, yeah. Let's talk about the warming center.
I have the triggers to open a warming center on the screen right now. So it's 2 consecutive days at or below 32 degrees, factoring in wind chill, or at or below 40 degrees with a forecast of heavy rain for 4 or more consecutive hours.
Right, okay. Do we have to, I mean, this will go before the council, if we can have a discussion on this. Do we need to wait until it's nearly freezing to say that people need to be indoors? If it was, it's thinking about how that is when we're outside, when I'm outside, I don't deal well with the cold, but that's just me. However, I think 32 degrees for 3 days is too long for someone to be outside when we know that that's their lifestyle right now, that they're unsheltered, they have no place else to go in the interim. Okay, so can we look at, that's 2 consecutive days, when we know it's going to be freezing, what we can get a forecast, 3 days, a week ahead of time? So if we get that forecast, it's going to freeze, I would like to consider, okay, the center needs to be opened on that date and not wait for 2 days for it to be 32 degrees or even earlier.
I guess I'm not clear. I'm not 100% clear on your question.
Okay, so my question is it possible for us, well, first of all, I was putting it to the council, so I'm sorry.
It's our decision. We can change that.
Yeah, so that's why I was putting it to the council. But I see the city manager would like to contribute something.
So you're correct. In terms of the triggers, that is a policy that the council adopted fairly recently. But as far as the forecasting, we absolutely have that capability, and that's what we're utilizing. And that's how we knew to reach out to, I guess you would say, our partners, to let the homeless community know that, in these days, the weather is forecasted to meet these triggers. So we anticipate opening up the shelter on, these given days. And so our staff in the fire department is watching that weather service every day, especially when we get into these kind of weather events. And so we absolutely monitor that, and we get the word out just as soon as we know that.
Okay, so I'm looking at possibly, and I know we have a policy, but we can also suspend temporarily, legally, we can temporarily suspend a policy in the case of if we consider it an emergency. Am I correct, attorney?
Have to bring that discussion back for
action.
Discussion.
For discussion.
To amend the policy.
Okay.
Because you right now, I would say, and I could probably be corrected here by our legal counsel, but right now, because the temperatures are still in the 90s, you don't have an emergency that it's going to be freezing in the next day or two.
Oh, no.
So if you want to revisit the triggers that trigger the opening of these types of facilities, that would have to be another business item on a future council meeting.
Right. I guess what I was trying to see if there was consensus so that I could make the suggestion for it to be on a future. Okay. Thank you. So that's what I was seeking. How did the other council members feel about reviewing the triggers that we have established in a recent policy that we passed?
How about we let Stocks next, then we can come back and have that conversation to possibly, either council comments or we need a motion to bring it back to a future meeting. Correct.
So the focus of tonight is this particular item. However, as part of the motion, if the council agrees that you'd like to discuss that particular element, which is certainly related to this item, then you can make that as part of your motion to bring that discussion back at a future meeting.
Everybody.
Okay. Councilman Stockton.
Yes, thank you. I also want to thank the many business owners for their patience and communication throughout last year dealing with this. I know that it was an added stress on all of you. I want to thank the police department for being respectful of the businesses that were there, providing security and doing your very best to ensure the safety of the shopping center, because I know that was a big deal. I guess one of the things that I'm concerned with is I really just don't feel like it's fair to keep it in one location to continually or perpetually impact the same businesses in the same area. I recognize that this location offers some very good, like the ADA accessibility, the coverage. I understand that there are some features that make it very appealing for what we're trying to do. However, I can't help but recognize that this is an added burden on one shopping center in the city. You know, we've moved to districts, and there can be NIMBYism and there can be all kinds of different things. And I do think that our council and our staff have done a good job from improving upon Georgie Duke, what we did last year, and I'm hoping that we can continue in that trend. But I think for me, what I'd really like to see is either one of a couple things, a rotation amongst the districts. I know that I've mentioned and discussed FEMA trailers that can be rolled in, rolled out. You know, we get a lot of members of the public and the faith-based community that are pretty passionate about this issue. I'm wondering if they would let us, if we had, you know, like a FEMA trailer with individual rooms with heating and air and stuff like that, and bathrooms, if they would let us park those in their parking lot somewhere. You know, if they're passionate about it and they want to help folks that need the help, I think that would be a good way to make sure that we can easily move things from one place to another without it being, you know, locked into one area where every year they're worried about whether or not we're going to have a cold spell that lasts a long duration, and then it's going to be potentially a bigger burden. So I wanted to thank the businesses. I wanted to thank the police department. I wanted to thank staff, because I do think we're moving in the right direction, but I still think that there's some room for improvement. My question is, were any efforts made to locate alternative locations besides this year?
I did talk to some members of faith-based communities having heard the trailer idea previously. I did float that, and I did not get any takers. I did not cast a wide net, so I could certainly do that. City does not have any other vacant properties that I'm aware of that are kind of move-in ready. So we did do some kind of general, you know, looking at other possibilities, but we don't have a whole lot available.
Okay, do we still have beds or rooms with Shelter Inc.?
We do. We have 5 nights, or 5 beds every night.
Okay, and do we also have, you know, I recognize that there are some additional challenges related to some of the hotels that we have agreements with, but do we still have the ability to help folks with those hotel rooms or families that are?
We do.
Okay. And is there a limit to the amount of people that can stay in those rooms? Like, will they allow a family, or, you know, is it only individuals that they'll allow to utilize those hotels?
I'll let crew speak to that.
Traditionally, the hotel's policy is, if depending on the family, we've had a family of 6 in there in 2 beds. It's tight, but they were comfortable inside. But traditionally, it's always been individuals, but upwards of a family of 4 or up to 6 in the past we've had as well.
Okay, and I'm just curious, were any of the hotels, I recognize that we have a very, you know, unique relationship with them to be able to make these accommodations, but were we able to reach out to any of the hotels to find out whether or not they might be able to help in this capacity on short notice?
We did not reach out to hotels. I think crew and I had some discussions about that and did not feel that was maybe the best route to go. I mean, we could certainly explore it, but.
And you said there were 58 people that total, that's 50. So I'm assuming when you say 58 people, 58 bodies stayed the night there during the 5 days that it was open, correct?
Correct.
So how many actual individuals utilized the warming center?
I'd have to go back and look at the logs.
15.
Can you get me that information if we don't know it right offhand? I think that would just be helpful in trying to identify the scope of the need and whether or not we might be able to find alternatives, you know, because if it's 100 people, I mean, you need a really large building, but if it's, you know, 10 or 15 people, we might not need a big building. We might be able to do something different. So I'm curious about that. And how many pets were brought out there? Do we have any idea how many people?
I think no pets.
None, but it was available in case.
It was available, okay. Absolutely.
How long did it take crew to kind of get that shopping center back to where it was before the warming center started? I know that when it was at Georgie Duke, There was a lot of folks that kind of hung around when it wasn't operational or wasn't open. Did you experience those problems at this location? And if so, how long did it take you to kind of get things kind of back to where they were before this had been opened?
So we were pretty proactive with making it known that people were not to hang out in that shopping center. Once the doors opened for them to leave at 7 a.m., they were told not to hang out in that shopping center. So that was kind of the standard that was set while the center was open. I would say that most of our efforts were focused after the center had closed for the season up in the Cliffside Park and Ride, which was an issue before the center had opened for the season. So we were up there for, between our efforts with working with allied agencies, CHP, Caltrans, and everything else, I'd say it probably took us a good 4 or 5 months after the center was closed for the season to actually get that Cliffside Park and Ride cleaned up and cleared out. But like I said, it was an issue before the warming center had even opened.
And the allocation for last year, the monetary allocation, was that also $50,000? Is that what you said?
Yes.
And you said that there's some of that money left over.
Yes.
Were the overtime costs for the additional security and law enforcement officer presence, did that come out of that fund? Was there overtime generated with our police department as a result of this?
There was overtime, and I do not believe it came out of that allocation.
You know how much that cost was for the additional police officers to be there during the duration of the warming center?
I do have it. I don't have it right in front of me.
I would just like that at some
Yep.
point. Those are the questions that I have from now. I'm interested to hear what the public thinks, but thank you for answering.
Of course.
Thank you, Sarah.
I just wanted to, when Councilmember Stockton had made mention of rotating the center, this is only, a question I'm asking. This is only a temporary measure until we are able, I believe that was part of a conversation we had earlier in a statement that was made that we're using this particular location on a temporary basis until we're able to locate something permanent.
Absolutely. This is just for the immediate need for this winter. It's a temporary option. Admittedly, yes, it is a repeat from last year, but as you know, our staff presented to you, we did look at other options, and right now there's just none available. But I do believe that there's other potential opportunities forthcoming that might be available in the future winter that the council's taking action on with regards to amendments to the zoning ordinance related to emergency shelters that don't just have to be on public property, they can be on private property. And then also the potential home key project might be another opportunity. So this is just for an extreme emergency situation that meets the triggers. And again, with the last year's winter, we had 5 nights where that occurred. And so this is not a permanent solution by no means. In fact, I appreciate the comments from the business owners out there. We, in fact, are actually doing a specific plan for the Peabody Allison area that is actually focused on reinvestment into that area and how do we revitalize that important shopping corridor and that neighborhood in our community. So who knows where that could go? That specific plan is the council's familiar with, takes some time, but it's obviously a very extensive, comprehensive look at the what's out there and what it can become. And so I think clearly this is a temporary thing. There's some efforts going on from the positives for reinvestment in the center, and then there's some other opportunities to take care of a more permanent solution for this type of facility, whether it's through those other examples that I mentioned, or even the potential county JPA that is just getting under the way as well. So, I mean, that is another effort that the county JPA is working towards bringing in a designated, dedicated staff to. And now that that's getting further along. It's taking a little bit longer than the county had expected. But once that gets there, then there will be other opportunities to explore another possible solution to this as well.
Thank you. That's all.
Councilwoman Wiley?
Thank you for the information. I just also wanted to follow up with, I do feel like if we try to move it from place to place, then people who are homeless never know where exactly they're supposed to go that night. So I feel like there's some value in having continuity and here's where it is. And because of the pretty high triggers that we have, 5 nights over the whole season doesn't seem excessive. And then the comment about the hours, you said they're supposed to leave by 7 a.m. and then the preschool didn't start until after that. So I know last year there were some concerns, but were there problems with the preschool and the people, or their hours were not the same even on weekdays?
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that when the center was operative, it was from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., which doesn't coincide with the hours for the school. Like I said, the preschool, most of the complaints came from the activity happening up at the Cliffside Park and Ride. I think there was one instance where we had one male who had wandered off into the shopping center after it had closed. We contacted him. We had an agreement. He moved along, and I don't think I got any more calls or complaints about them hanging out in that area by the preschool. But like I said, most of the complaints during the center being open from the preschool came from the view up at the Cliffside Park and Ride with the cars and the garbage and shopping carts, bicycles, people loitering, that kind of thing.
And then thank you for being proactive and working with Public Works and Caltrans and getting the Cliffside Park and Ride closed, because that sounds like a big issue that won't be effective this year. And then if there was an issue in the parking lot, in the center, that you all were responsive to business owners and dealt with any issues that they had. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Or safe to say?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's what I just wanted to clarify. My feeling is that moving it would be more difficult and less effective. So it seems like this is the best solution for a temporary house placement for a limited number of days. Thank you.
I did just want to let you know that when we did our business walk, we did hand out information and contact information to the business owners, so that if they did encounter any issues, they knew exactly who to reach out to and contact if they had any issues. And we did have some folks reach out, and crew was very responsive and addressed any issues that came up.
Jason?
Yeah, just a couple things. Kind of inform a couple statements to help inform the council a little bit. So it was like, for Colleen Warman says, actually had to help write the Yellow County plan and what the cities are responsible for versus the county. And so for any type of emergency shelter, whether it's evacuations or cooling and warming centers, it has to meet a few criteria, like it has to be within walking distance of public transit, must be ADA accessible, and must have access to pets at least one location. So if we only have one location, that's the location that has to have it. And so finding another building within the city that's not near a school or in the middle of a shopping center, in the middle of a neighborhood, is very, very difficult for every city in the state. The question I did have was, when you reached out to the faith-based organizations, what was their reasoning for not wanting to do it?
Folks I talked to mentioned insurance, that their insurance policies were limited to church operations and not warming center operations.
Kind of interesting, since every other city has churches that do, including Fairfield is the city's warming center. This might be more for city attorney. Would it be possible to do an MOU with faith-based organizations to assume liability if they're acting as a warming center for the nights that they are open?
We could certainly work with the faith-based communities, and and enter into some MOU if that were the direction, of the council, and if it led to that.
Yeah, because if insurance was the issue, like with an MOU, and we assume liability for those nights as performing a service for the city,
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. Are you saying the city would assume the
if
liability?
they're like the nights of the warming center, because I know we have to do the same thing with, I mean, it's our building, but with MOUs, like if they're worried about liability, if they're doing a service for the city, would we be able to assume liability for that night? It's not considering like gross negligence for their site or something.
So that is something, you can negotiate a lot of things
Yeah.
through MOUs, so that's something that we could certainly consider if that was the direction of the council.
If that was their sole reason for not wanting to do it, their insurance not covering it, if we covered that portion, they say, oh yeah, we'll do it now.
Right,
So
but
that couldn't be done through an MOU, correct?
It could be, of course, we'd want to consider what that means, to, for
Yeah.
liability on the city.
Yeah. I know there's a lot of other conversations with that, but it is something that could happen if.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Councilman Silva?
Thank you. Just a couple things. Sorry, I'm trying to summarize here. How many available beds or shelter beds are there currently? And I know you mentioned we have 5, but is that, just to clarify, are there 5 open beds?
At Shelter Solano,
Yes.
we have 5 beds. I would look to crew to say whether they're available or not.
We have 5 beds allotted to us, and all 5 beds at this moment are currently being utilized.
So if someone, and I've rode along with you guys several times through the years, or a few times through the years, and most of the time when just observing, offering help, offering services, it's always denied. But if somebody individually express, yeah, I want to get off, well, in this particular situation, what's the plan of action?
For somebody that wants to get off the streets, but we don't have any shelter beds available. So we work closely with the Solano County Hope team through the county, and we have access to one of the social workers that works pretty well with helping us find SLEs or sober living environments or room and boards. They have access to all that. And that stuff's typically offered a lot of times before the shelter because it's on their terms. It's a little more freedom for them. They get to choose if they want to take it or not. Whereas the shelter, you send somebody into the shelter and they're living in a room on a bunk bed with 30 to 40 other people. Whereas the sober living environment, there's a lot of factors that go into it. If they have an income, medical, stuff like that. But we have that option available. We do have, we contract with America's Best Value Inn. Those rooms, we have 2 rooms. Those are both currently being utilized for a short-term solution to an ending to a long-term plan. But right now, we would more than likely work with the county and the county Hope team to try to find a sober living environment or a room and board, or even a detox program. Opportunity House helps us out a lot with the detox stuff.
So, but it doesn't sound like, has that occurred right now? Is there somebody looking for shelter right now that process being initiated?
There is one individual that I'm working with that is looking to get into an SLE. If I had a bed available at the shelter, I would offer it to her, but I don't. And she's working with our social worker through the Hope team, hopefully sometime soon to get into a place. And when I say sometime soon, I'm hoping by the end of this week, early next week.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And so I think, the purpose I asked for that, just to kind of understand where it's at, because I think the pig count increased as well. But from my understanding, like the max that actually attended the shelter in a given night was like 15, around 15, 16, and just dividing 58 by 5, that's 11 to 12 individuals on average a night. So just kind of using that as a guideline. A question came up about like expanding the parameters. I think to me, one thing I think we have to consider is, are we focused on delivering or providing emergency shelter under emergent situations, or are we start moving towards longer term situations? And I think the impact of that can vary. So I find it interesting that it was mentioned the concern about the Ulata Center, that some of the negative unintended consequences of having folks go to that area that we see, during ride-alongs. We've seen, pretty a lot of unfortunate situations to our environment. So I see that different ways. So what is it about the Peabody that's enforceable, or what is it about the Peabody Shopping Center that allows that to be mitigated or controlled that can't be at Ulatis?
Well, I think right now at the moment with the Cliffside Park and Ride being shut down, you take away a lot of the spots for them to even park their cars or hang out at. The cultural center seems to be a place where they gravitate to because it doesn't get as much attention. It's not on the main strip like Mason. If somebody brings a shopping cart over when the shelter isn't, or the warming center isn't operational, we're going to see that from the street. There's, off the top of my head, I'd have to guess maybe 12 parking spots over there around that little building, whereas over at the Ulatis Cultural Center, you have a whole parking lot. Like, you've seen how big that parking lot is, and it makes it easier for them to congregate there than it does at this place, I would say, based on the Cliffside Park and Ride being shut down now.
Okay.
And if I can just add real quickly, when we had the cooling center at Ulatis, we didn't have crew involved in that. So that was just staff, communities, parks and recreation staff operating a cooling center in a community center where we've got summer camps, lots of other programming happening, not the same level of enforcement and oversight happening. And so we had a little bit of a different outcome when the cooling center was done. So I think we're just have a little bit of a different outcome, whereas if we had crew, it still would be a different outcome if we had a warming center there with the same level of thing happening. But still, it's a community center where we have a lot of programming happening, backing right up to where the start and end times are happening. So where we've got the 1040 Mason Street, there's not summer camps happening right in that same building or right adjacent. Yes, in the same shopping center, but it's not necessarily attached to it. So it's a little bit different.
And I'm going to try to get through some of these questions and less comments on my part. But what is the state requirement for, I know Councilmember Roberts kind of alluded to, but what's the state requirement for having a warming center? Like, it has to be on public property, or?
I don't have that information.
Okay. Okay, and then the K-Rails absolutely helped out that packed parking lot, so I really appreciate the effort that went on behind that, just from my observations and feedback. What is there to mitigate or prevent, or what is there to support Vacaville PD or crew helping provide services and other measures to prevent more encampment going on that state-owned property currently?
I think there's a couple factors that go into it. Obviously, the change in the Supreme Court law is one big factor. Brian McLean and I are trying to still work to have the city take ownership and maintain it, which also will allow us to add some signage. And then obviously the physical barriers of not, I mean, you can walk into it, but because there's nothing in it, it's whoever's in it's going to stand out. So I think you've got about 3 or 4 different levels of authority that allow us to make sure that it doesn't turn into what I think people thought it was going to be last year, if that makes sense.
And then thank you, City Manager, for alluding to the PDA. When should the business owners expect some type of process to begin for feedback?
Our Community Development Department is working on a community outreach plan that should be released fairly soon. And so that will be something that I know that they are anxious to get the word out, whether it's through social media, all kinds of different media forms, including just hand delivery as well. So that will be something that we'll be definitely actively promoting and seeking everybody that is within those boundaries to actively participate.
Okay, thank you. And then the hours of operation will be the same, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then I think the other questions about the faith-based locations have been asked and addressed. All right, and I'll save my comments. Thank you.
Councilman Stockton.
Yes, can beds be purchased from Shelter Inc. on a day-to-day basis? Like, can we, if we recognize that, like, is there a prorated cost to just buy beds for like a week?
There's some flexibility there. For example, if we only have 3 beds for 6 months and we have 7 or 8 beds for 6 months, it'll be a wash. And it depends on their availability as well. I think they had 1 bed. I called last Thursday. I think they had 1 bed in their entire facility available as well. So maybe it's a possibility as our beds kind of ebb and flow, depending on how many people are there and depending on how long they stay. So I don't have a definitive answer for you, but there is some flexibility in talking with their director and understanding that they'll charge us for 5 beds and then work it out at the end of the year as our numbers kind of ebb and flow.
Okay. Do you, either you two or the fire chief or the one of the 2 captains up there have any idea if anybody last year died of hypothermia? Not drugs, just hypothermia.
I think I can answer that question, and the answer is no.
None.
Correct.
And we had 5 days that fell
Correct.
within this category? Okay. I also just wanted to clarify, you're safe, Chief, that I wasn't recommending that we rotate it every time the criteria was met. I'm talking annually each year, keeping it at the same location, but rotating it through, but not moving it each year, so we don't have those inconsistencies. I would be curious to know what the insurance cost, insurance policy cost would be to see if that's a roadblock for our faith-based communities or some of the private business owners that are passionate about this, if we could remove that obstacle for them. That's it. I'll save the rest for my comments.
Thank you so much. Any comments from the public?
Good evening. Thank you, Council. My name's Daniel Ponce. My mother owns a Steca restaurant, so I spend about 7 days a week in that center. So I can actually, see what's happening, and we're pretty familiar with that center. Last year, thank you guys, we did a good job of getting those guardrails up, and sort of that was this year, but we've seen a change because of that dramatically. But what we did notice is, the way that whole community grew behind the restaurant was slow, but it grew. And we noticed they started to congregate there. And so we did have to deal with it. We necessarily didn't have to call the cops every time there was an issue, but we did deal with it. We picked up trash. We had to ask them to leave. They harassed some of our staff, and we just told them to leave, and I'd give them food and they leave. What I'm concerned about is some of the problems you spoke that may happen because of the Ulatis. What are we going to do to prevent them from camping in our center? Is that our responsibility to call you guys every time we see a car that's suspicious? Because that does take time out of our day. So that's something I'm concerned about. Also, the community that left, do we know where they're located? Because if the concern is having something centrally located, are we looking at where they're at now and putting something closer to them? Just questions I have.
Sure. So to address the first concern that you had, or the question with the individuals and not wanting it to turn into a campground inside the shopping center, people leaving in their cars. When that warming center is open and activated, I can assure you that it's my team's mission to make sure that that's not happening. Sleeping in a car in itself is a violation of the law in the camping ordinance within the city, and we try to do a good job of making sure that's not happening, especially in the centers like that. So I can tell you, if the center is open there during its operation, we will be watching out for that, most definitely. I think even last year we ran into a few issues with it, and we handled it, and I could be wrong, but I didn't get any follow-up back from any of the businesses, but I didn't get anything negative either after we had handled those issues.
Sorry, one more thing. Abandoned cars did happen in our shopping center several times. Took us a while to get rid of those. So is that something your team's going to be looking at as well?
Absolutely. Sometimes abandoned vehicles are a process. We can't just go in and say they're abandoned and tow them away. There is a process. And like I said, I'd be more than happy to come in and speak with you at your restaurant, and we can have a conversation and I can address any other issues that you might have. But that is something that we'll be looking out for primarily in that area because it more than likely might happen, and we'll address it if it does.
Thank you.
My name is Sandra Tam, and I'm with County Square Market. I'm one of the owners to the supermarket since 2009. I've heard a lot of wonderful things tonight because we have a lot of changes coming to Vacaville, and how amazing how we're gonna see now, improving Vacaville and becoming a very well-known tourist. 80 highway pass through everything, right? So last year around this time, November, we had the same topic, and all my friends and businesses, people around County Square, Peabody Plaza, we all came here. Remember last year? We were really upset, but we understand we need to do whatever we need to do to help our community. And so we accepted it. We took it. It's okay because we were hoping, because it's so sudden, we know there's nowhere you can find a place to put people in when those cold nights or last winter. So after listening to all your information last night, I just feel like, okay, winter is here again. You guys had a whole year to think about it the moment you put them in last year. Why do you wait until last minute again and throwing in all the ADU and all that stuff? Everywhere could be accessible. 58 people is just like Asian families, 10 families going camping in Yosemite. It's not crazy, right? And then at one time, we had to fight about the tiny homes put at the Caltrans station. So where are those tiny homes? Maybe we can utilize those tiny homes, put them at the park somewhere. We can access to electrical and all that at the state parks. I'm sure there's something we can plug in because we're not using it every day, but at least they know we definitely will be ADA approved because everything is flat, right? And I'm sure those already built tiny homes, or even those now 300 square feet ready-made homes online you can order, is ADA approved as well. And we can put the people in there, 58, 10 families at our camping site at a public park or somewhere that they can go to. And there's public bathroom, whatever we could put near, outdoor shower and all that stuff. That's probably accessible at the parks also. But you cannot keep putting at Peabody Plaza, because we came a really long way to make it better. Last year I was up here, I reminded you guys about how far along this plaza took place. I'm not that old. I didn't get to have my business since 1979, like Aztec, okay? But I was here since 2009, but when we were here, it was a pretty dead plaza. Barely any business around, dark, no parking like I said last year. Across the street, the car dealership was completely abandoned, right? And now look at how amazing, how beautiful it is. We're getting closer to beautifying Vacaville. It is a very hidden gem. I love being here. And we are right at the head of Peabody, right off exit of Mason, and then people coming through, sorry. Peabody. Let's not try to make it easy, like, okay, it's another temporary. Earlier, when Lancify said, you know what, we're going to bring a nice big bike park here, but it might take 5 to 8 years. And what did all your reactions were? Oh my God, I love the idea, but I don't dig the 5 to 8 years. I love what we need to do to help the people, but we can't dig 5 or 8 more years of just quickly shove this to our plaza. We have to make a permanent solution. How? And we probably can even be viable.
Thank you.
Makes Vacaville better. Thank you.
Sorry, start early, sir.
Good evening. This is Ann Lee Wald. I am trying to continue what Sandra left off. Peabody Center is established since 1979, and we kind of came in 2009, so I don't want to repeat the rest of it. we are, like you say, we see beautiful things happening in Vacaville, and we want to see the, the beautification, and hoping the city would help us beautify our little center that right off the highway. And I heard all the good things, of course, I thankful for all our policemen, and they did a lot of wonderful jobs for that. But at the same time, we are putting more stress and problems for their shoulder to carry. And to me, the biggest thing is we're trying to invite outsiders, visitors to our center, and we're right off the highway. And we're not advertising for better to, to stop by right off the highway. The beautiful center, there's multinational retail stores and patrons from, all over the world that is coming to the center now. And we are not advertising that and keep saying that this is a temp thing. A temp can only be once, not second and a third, and keep coming back as a temp. And then another big thing that bugs me a lot also is that we are having to deal with it year after year. I appreciate this councilman a lot by thinking that, oh, maybe someone else can take some load out of it. But then at the same time, I think if this is a continuous and continued problem for the state and for the country and for our county and city, it should have a permanent solution that don't ponder this problem to our retailers, our hardworking people that who are making a daily life to earn a piece of living. And why we have to deal with it day after day? You understand that the 32 degrees warning is coming. Oh, what about the people who are working hard, thinking that how am I going to take care of my work and when the 32 degrees coming? That you have to put extra problem that my people had to go out in the parking lot and taking care of the problem that not only between the time that the shelter is open, it's the before and after issues. Oh, now that they know where they're coming from, they're going to be here before you open, and they're going to be here after you close. And that is the major problem. And I'm right on the creek. Thank you.
All right, any more questions from the public? Bring it back to council. Yeah. Jeez. Jason?
Oh, some of those additional comments, I was going to make a motion, but if people have comments, and I'll let them go.
Additional comments?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I appreciate that we're having this conversation. I'm glad it's not cold yet. It was 100 degrees last week. So it's not like we're expecting sub 32 degree temperatures tomorrow. I would really like some answers to some of the questions about some of the different options related to shelter ink beds, related to some of the hospitals. But I think mostly the one that I'm concerned about is this insurance. What is the cost of the insurance? If that's what's really holding up our faith-based community and some of these private folks, I'm just curious of what that cost would be, because we have limited resources financially, but also our police department parking there overnight and having to stay there. I mean, there's some added costs, especially if that's not being factored in. So, I'm wondering if this can come back soon, right? Because we don't want to wait a year, and we don't want to, not have answers before it does start getting cold. But I'm wondering what's the timeline to find out whether or not this can come back. Like, how soon do you need an answer about Mason?
Well, I think the sooner the better. So I guess if I'm looking at alternatives, I have a couple questions for you. So am I looking at, and we're talking about the faith-based community and insurance, are we talking about putting a trailer on their property, or what are we looking at? Because I need some information related to that to further that conversation.
Sure. Like, well, if they're, I guess that's a different issue, right? If they're not willing to open up their doors, that's a completely separate issue. The issue that was brought up today was related to the insurance cost to have this on their property. If that's a separate issue, we didn't hear that today. So I guess my question would just be, if it's an insurance related question for them to open their doors as a warming center, I'd be interested in that cost. I recognize that there's no way we're going to order a trailer this year. I would like to, find out if that's a viable option for next year. But I think that a question to ask our faith-based community and some of the private business owners that have advocated for warming shelters and homeless resources would be to find out if this insurance thing can be dealt with first, because they're clearly not going to have it in the parking lot if there's an insurance issue, just as they wouldn't have them in their worship center or their facility if that's a question. So that would be my direct. Hopefully that clarified that, because the only thing I heard was insurance, and then also the like the hotels, if that's a viable option. I mean, we said 50, you said 58 people, but it's really like 15, right? So
Right.
nobody died. If there, and I don't want anybody to die, to be clear, but if 15 beds at a hotel, and we can work some of that stuff out and they're amenable to that, I think it's worth at least asking before we inconvenience the shopping center again. We may not have a choice, and I understand that, but I would feel better knowing that we've exhausted some of those things before we make a final decision.
You can ask those questions.
So much. Yes, Councilman Silva.
Thank you. So, so last year, without rehashing a lot of things, I think one of the challenges that anytime we concentrate something without sufficient support, it creates additional challenges, right? So if you have, something that some of us, I can't speak for everybody, but like, I have an issue when we concentrate poverty in a given area. I have an issue when us as a governing body decide things and impose situations that have a negative unintended consequence to people around that surrounding area. So like, for example, with the warming center on the Duke Center, that there was a lot of fallout, particularly within the lower Callan area during that time. I know that things are constantly changing. I know we have, we've reinvested back into our police department to be fully staffed. We got crew back, and I forgot to tell you, Andy, and I'll say this publicly, a business owner, a particular area of town, expressed that recently things have greatly improved with certain challenges that they have. And I'm going to leave it vague on purpose, because the other challenge that I've had is that when we concentrate, problematic things that other people want but want something done, it makes it much more difficult for business owners for their business to thrive. It makes it much more difficult for people to invest or reinvest into their properties, whether they're homeowners, business owners, or even just renters. And so this concept about having a designated spot, so that way everybody knows, like, I understand the value of that. In many cases, that's where they currently have it at different faith-based organizations on their grounds, where they serve food or provide different services. And so I think that I don't think that would be like a novel thing for those individuals per se. However, it may be more challenging for crew now than being in one area. Now they're more challenged to navigate through different regions of town. And so where I think the reality of the situation is that, numbers wise, the setup wise, staff, this is what staff is recommending. I think, part of the reality, just me being on the other, as a resident, seeing how things go, like, this is what there is now, right? So, but at the same time, I think the biggest challenge is when we say temporary, but there's no end in sight or anything defined as when temporary will end. It seems like it's very permanent. And because of that, we create a lot of mistrust. We create a lot of division within our community, and it's unfortunate. 2 years prior, how many days was the warming center open? I remember the number, but so wasn't it 0? No, I'm sorry. So wasn't there 1 year where the warming center wasn't activated at all?
I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, so one of the years there was within recent there wasn't open at all. The Duke was a little bit different with ARPA and COVID and you know trying to mitigate that. The challenge that the issue that I had with that particular process is that I don't know. One, I don't know the data. I never seen any data to see how many of those individuals transition to permanent housing or decide to pursue something to change, you know, to transform their lives and get, you know, help them out. And so I think these are like, so like weighing all these different things and just not being a temporary solution, but being an emergent. So to me, like the focus is for this to be an emergent solution. When there's given emergencies, for shelter, there's a place for people to go, so that way they don't freeze. And I don't think anybody wants to see that happen. Period, right? So the question always becomes where. And so I think to me, I think the reality is that this would be that particular spot for at least this winter. But I think we also need to pursue 3 other options. So number one, I think that's also concurrently exploring what would it take for particularly those who are advocating for additional homeless services, what would it take for them to house those warming centers on their particular facilities, on the particular grounds, and to have that feedback, have that conversation in a robust study. And then that way we can do a better cost-effective analysis to understand what would that take. Another option that I'm curious to see, rather than, again, keeping it only in one spot, if there's no programming going on at the Lattice Center, I'm still not clear on why that couldn't be open maybe 1 month or 2 months where that space isn't activated. So I'm curious to see what that data is from the Lattice Center, because in my mind, that would be an ideal spot because it is apart from anything else other than the performing arts theater and whatnot. But I hear what staff's saying, and you know I respect that. But I'm curious to see what the data is, because maybe there's a way to split it up over the course of the winter rather than just one spot continuously. Number 3, now this one to me actually makes more sense for a longer term outcome. Is what if assuming that turnkey project out there works, and having a designated community center that in itself at night when the triggers are met, that in itself has a warming center component for emergency services there. So maybe that's a new building, or maybe that's a couple units in themselves that are transitioned to accommodate 15, 20 different individuals on a night for using the current data. The challenge with that, I know they need money, additional money. I know that's not we're not looking at that open to 2026. But to me, the benefit of that particular site is it allows those individuals who are dedicated towards helping address homelessness to be able to serve the emergent need, and number 2, serve the ability or support the ability of those individuals who are seeking those emergent shelter services to transition into transition along their pathway to get out of homelessness from a more permanent thing. I think many people throughout the state, like we all want to see something done. I think it is a challenge at times when some of us feel like we care more about the issue than people care about themselves. And then you got other goodwill people pointing the finger at everybody, and it makes it a challenge, in a state where we do have limitations on housing and beds and shelter and whatnot, and clarifying different laws and what's appropriate and so on and so forth. But I think, and the fourth part, I got to add one, is for us to also looking into, do we need to increase any beds at Shelter Inc. To accommodate that? Because it sounds like that we may need to add at least 1 to 2 more. So that's my thoughts.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll be very brief. The fellow council has had a lot of amazing points. I think really the staff's gonna have a lot to go back with, depending on how this goes forward, to get guidance on sheltering beds, assisting beds. Earlier I alluded when I talked in regards to kind of segueing off Visit Vacaville, and how important it is to make sure we activate and realize Vacaville is more than just one place to shop, one center. And I was alluding to the Peabody. Being a Vacaville native, I remember climbing over the hill on my bike before Costco was there. That was my old bike track. I used to live right behind Spindrift, behind Wood. so I can tell you stories. I remember when that area is very different. I remember when the Ford dealership was thriving. It was the spot to be. The post office across the street. Things have changed. It went to a ghost town for a long time. It tried to be revived and failed, revived and failed. It's like a Kairos moment. It's a great opportunity time when a developer came in and seized the opportunity to take that land, and they're building not market rate. They're building, it's going to cost quite a bit to be housed there. And that opportunity is going to be a moment we really should, as the city manager alluded, we should embrace this opportunity. That shopping center, when I moved back from Los Angeles, the first church that I became part of, and now I still am, it was there. And there was another church there. That whole plaza has majority, minority, and ethnic-based businesses. With that huge development coming there, it's gonna be a great opportunity. I don't want to see us use and abuse, take advantage, and wave goodbye after 2 years. I do feel this is permanent. As long as we're on council, we hear you. We're gonna make sure that we're steadfast and find the best opportunity to find a permanent place that's not gonna be the same conversation. But I want to make sure that you guys realize the city's doing their part. We passionately feel like there's a great opportunity to activate this amazing park complex to make sure they navigate and really understand that plaza. The fact that we have 3 agencies, I'm not gonna act like an expert. I don't know nearly enough to be up here talking, but I do trust our staff, I trust crew, and I trust the fact that you can say they've done a better job and it's better with their involvement. So for that purpose, I'm on board. But I do want to let you know, like, as far as myself and hearing the comments, making sure that after we burden that plaza, there's 2 things that I really care about: personal safety of those kids and the residents there, and the financial prosperity. You guys should make sure that you've had a lot of focus, good and bad. I don't want the light to shine off you guys. I'll make sure that plaza maintains energy, maintains a focus, becomes another place we generate and activate for events. Depending on how it goes with the state property, I hope the state gets their butt together. Caltrans could either chip in, assembly members, senators that are in this area step up and really push Caltrans to do the right thing. Because 100,000 cars pass by there, and there's off-ramp and on-ramp. There's an opportunity to create prosperity and tax dollars, which we all need in Vacaville. So I will not forget about this. Make sure that this burden isn't something that you guys should be able to be prosperous from in the future. I want you guys to end up better after this happens than before. So that's my comments. Councilor Chapman, sorry, my mic went off.
It's okay. I did tell Vice Mayor Ritchie's words to you. We've worked together through the years. We've done some great things here together. She was very supportive during the time that I was chairing the Cultural Diversity Fair. She opened her doors for us to meet there, fed the young people. And I have been there. I continue to come there, right? So don't think that I don't care about the plaza and everything that's going on there. Sophia, right across from you, was my beautician. Yeah. So I have history with the area. And at the same time, I'm sincere about my efforts to improve the quality of life for everybody. And it actually does pain me some evenings when I'm at home and I'm thinking about the unsheltered and how far and what we have accomplished and what needs to be done for them. And a couple of weeks ago, I went on a ride along to distribute meals to them. And there were some areas that I didn't know that where they resided. I'm thinking of the creeks and the park and rides, but I went to some other areas where they're right outside the door of the grocery store. sitting there clumped together behind the grocery stores. I mean, I was really surprised along the street. But yet, when you think about right now, it's hot outside. Oh my gosh, and I can't deal with that. But however, talking about the warming center, this summer, when we operated the cooling center, I didn't know that Park and Rec were the ones overseeing it and not crew. The day we opened the doors, I was speaking to to Georgianne, and I said, well, what about transportation? She says, oh, let me look into it. And at the time, I didn't know how spread out they were in the community. But after you offered the transportation, some actually utilized the transportation to get to the cooling center. And we hadn't done that before, but it was a good thing. It was a good thing. I had a meeting that was scheduled at United Center on one of the cooling center days. And the room that we were going to utilize for the CAC meeting was being occupied by the unsheltered, and we hadn't been notified. So they had to open up another room for us to meet that day. But I noticed how it wasn't secured. You know, the door on the right-hand side off of the drive parking lot area, there's a door you can enter Ulatis. I'm talking about the community center. On the other end by the theater, there's a door. And then you have the main doors. So they had access in and out. So it wasn't just one way in and a back door for an emergency, but it was just open. So I think I called Georgianne because I heard that there was some issues and they had to close the cooling center that had occurred there. And I'm saying this because the difference between, as I said, between Ulatis and the old bus station, the Greyhound station, is that you're able to secure it. You have more control. You know who's on the grounds, and the way now I will admit, there was some ugly fencing around the facility. However, you knew that they were enclosed, that they were in a controlled area. And I think that's better than being at Ulatis where it lacked that. And sure, they can lock the door, but someone inside can still open that door and they can come in. So with that being said, I would like to move that we approve the utilizing 1040 Mason Street as the 2425 Winter Warming Center, and that staff return, if possible, at the next meeting with answers to the questions that were posed this evening. And we being the council have an opportunity to discuss the triggers for use of a warming and cooling center. Excuse me, can we get a second? Then we have discussion and
I'll wait.
Is anyone willing to second?
I'll second that. Why?
Thank you.
Motion and second.
And now your discussion.
Discussion.
That would, if they're going to do it 2 years in a row, that they wouldn't have to do it for another 10 years after this. That way we ensure that next year it goes somewhere else instead of, that was what I wanted to add to your motion, but it's already been seconded, so.
You can always alter a motion. That's okay.
But I mean, that's one way to ensure that we move this next year and that this doesn't end up being an every year. Oh, it caught up to us and now we're, you know what I'm saying?
I hear you.
So,
if I may say, I would, since we know what since the city manager has already spoken about what is in the works and we're aware of that, I would ask that we allow the city manager, he knows our feeling about a permanent location, that we share with him that he looks into that.
okay, so you don't want to put it in your motion?
I don't want to put it in
fair
my
enough.
motion. Yeah.
Quick, sorry.
Silva?
Just to clarify, when you, in your motion, you mentioned address the questions in 2 weeks. I'm pretty sure that's a challenge to get that. But are you talking about the 4 points that I brought up?
Your points, all the points that were brought up by the council.
Okay.
You have them, right? I believe you were making note of them.
Yes,
I got them right here too.
and they've been recorded, so.
Okay, yes, sir.
Andrew?
So we will do our best to do that, but some of the stuff that the request was made for involves other parties that I don't know that I'm going to be able to get that information, because remember, the next meeting in 2 weeks is already being planned right now. And the majority of us are going to be out next week at the League of Cities event. So it will be difficult. So we understand the request for additional information, but if the motion is to use this particular address, once again, as a temporary facility, we can certainly come back with that information as quickly as possible, perhaps by the November meeting. That will give us more time to have those conversations, to do the research necessary, to come back with that. I'm pretty confident we can get some of the information, but again, we're relying on other parties out there that I don't know if we can.
Excuse me, that's understandable. And so you would report back on the information that you were able to obtain and waiting on, we would understand.
So just to make sure I'm meeting your expectations, are you wanting another item on the October 22nd meeting, or are you willing to give me till the November meeting to come back with more information and all the details that were brought up tonight?
A November meeting is fine because, as you stated, I forgot that the majority of us will be gone to the League of Cities.
Yes.
Starting on the 15th through the 18th. So anyway, yes, your calendar is full, and we understand. So November is fine.
Councilman Roberts?
Sorry, I may have forget. Did those points include like following up with the faith-based organizations? Okay. Yeah.
All the concerns that were raised by the council members, I've asked that they address.
Councilman Silva?
I have a friendly amendment. Or suggestion, in that discussion, I'd like for us to talk about, I'd like for us to have a discussion about how we would allow funds to support any site improvements that those particular business owners had to address from last year till this year.
Okay, your friendly amendment, it's my understanding, you can correct me, but any issues that came up last year, were they not addressed?
I am personally not aware of any particular costs incurred, but that's not to say that, that hasn't happened. But again, that was not part of the original plan. We were gonna, if there was restitution needed, we offered to hear about that and everything.
Right.
I have not heard anything in that regard.
And I remember last year, that was a discussion that we had, that if that should occur, the question was posed to the attorney at that time. And we were told that any damage done by our unsheltered would be addressed. That still hold true?
I believe we talked about the possibility of using the claims process if it wasn't addressed.
Yes.
So, and that's always available.
So that stands as it did last year. Okay.
Good. So we have a motion and a second. Can we do a roll call, please? Oh, sorry.
We make a friendly amendment to discuss mini grants available to small businesses, similar to that of downtown.
So I would suggest we go through with this, because this is what is on the agenda tonight, is the temporary emergency shelter for warming center. Now we're talking about, small business grants and all that kind of thing. I think we're getting a little away from the subject.
And roll call, please.
Councilmember Stockton? Councilmember Silva?
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman?
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Wiley.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ritchie.
Yes. Okay, motion approved. Reports from city manager?
I have none this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Reports from city council, Silva?
I'd like to make a motion for staff to bring back a discussion item on mini grants for small businesses that are outside the downtown Vacaville.
Discussion. You got a first and a second. What did you do? You made a motion.
Yeah.
He made a motion. A motion and a second allows you to discuss.
Yes.
Okay.
Tell us if we can.
Who's going to discuss it?
Okay, just a question.
Melinda?
Oh, I was just going to say, if you have a motion and a second to put something on a future agenda, you do need to vote on that.
Yeah.
But she can ask a clarifying question, right?
Yes. Okay.
That's with you. Small grants for, mini grants for small businesses throughout the city.
So similar to so just putting things in context, we have a pilot program for downtown Vacaville businesses in that jurisdiction. The question is, can we open that up to other businesses? I'd like for us to talk about whether or not we can or should open that up to businesses outside of downtown Vacaville.
So, thank you. I just want to know what you were alluding to.
Can I ask a friendly question? What is the timeline that you're expecting? Because just the particular small grant program that you're referencing was included as part of this past fiscal year budget. Right now, we currently do not have opportunities to go beyond that. So is this something that you're wanting to have sooner than later, or can we do it as part of the budget discussions?
I realize that since based on our process and based on the previous items discussion, that would have to be something that we budget for annually. So we would have to have that. We would need to have that conversation within 2 months or so before June. So by April.
So if we were to do that as part of the council,
unless there's some type of grant funding that we can pursue that small businesses could be able to access.
so if this was to be part of the council's goal and priority discussions that we typically have in March, April, ahead of the budget, would that be sufficient?
Yes. That's because, just for people, in case people are wondering, just because we approve money only once a year with some exceptions. That's not.
So now we need your vote on
Yes.
that.
Okay, for your roll call again, please.
Councilmember Wiley.
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts.
Yes.
Councilmember Chapman.
Yes.
Councilmember Silva.
Yes.
Councilmember Stockton.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ritchie.
Yes. Okay, back to council comments. You get the floor. Okay, anybody else?
I have something, but I forgot.
Forgot.
I forgot.
Should we come back to you? So,
I won't hold up the meeting
okay.
for it.
Councilman Wiley?
I will just report that this past week, I went to the civic breakfast on base and met, that was my first meeting with Colonel Johnson, our new commander at the base. And he was very supportive of the surrounding community and just said of all the bases he works on, it's just great support from Fairfield and Vacaville. And it was just great to be able to work together. And he talked about so many things going on and how things are tight at the Air Force, and they are just really doing everything they can to provide the safety of the people here and elsewhere. And so that there were a lot of changes going forward, possibly in the direction of how it's organized. So it was a wonderful breakfast, civic breakfast. And then I don't know if we'll have a discussion, but I participated in cleanup day since the last council meeting, and that was a wonderful activity, and the people in the community were very happy to have the support of all the volunteers. We had some new volunteers and all the city staff and all the people that came out to help, and the businesses, because like the tree trimming business and the lawn business. So it was a wonderful cooperative effort to clean up around Normandy.
All right, thank you so much. Chapman?
Thank you. Yes, the annual neighborhood cleanup, Make a Difference Day was in my district. Thank you very much. And it was early in the morning because Councilmember Wiley said, well, you know, this is your district. And I said, no, it's not. Yeah, but it was great. The young people, I mean, they are some hard-working individuals, shoveling gravel and rocks, and I was very, very impressed. A lot of great volunteers, and I believe I left because they were packing up, and as I was leaving, Councilmember Wiley was down on her knees, still pulling weeds, and she says, join us. And I said, join you? They're packing up to leave. And so others came to help out as I was exiting.
Some people stopped when I encouraged them to stop.
Yeah, but it was great. And then National Night Out was another success. I had two escorts, and they were so kind. We had a lot of fun. I took a lot of pictures as well. And there was a suggestion made, and I'm not sure if it was, I'm not sure where it came from, but they were saying there should be a contest. Take pictures of each one of the individuals, the spots, the host. Take pictures because many of them really decorate. They go way out. And they're very thankful for the little gift card that's provided to them, and they make the best of it. Now, I did have one that was on the list, but no one was at home. How can I check to see if they received a gift card? Oh, okay. All right. But other than that, everything is great. And I want to welcome our city manager back and hope he had a nice vacation.
All right, anyone else? I'll just quickly talk about, yeah, so I had the opportunity, both the men that I was with from the National Night Out, I was having it be moved from one date to the October date. I forgot my outfit. So I rarely do Officer Hightower, and so I miss out this year. So that's one thing I will next year for the fun of the kids, get my whole outfit going. But it was a great experience. I was with Larson and Poland. We visited a few spots together, and it really helps to see what it's all about. The conversations we had with the public, it was beautiful to see how important it is for community, for people to get out in the community, visit their neighbors, start to bring kind of friendship and kinship together, and realize that we're all here together. The police and public safety are part of the community. These people live in Vacaville. They don't work here and drive 50 miles away like other cities. They're the neighbors. So a lot of these places they're going for the National Night Outs, that's 7 blocks over, 3 blocks over from their house. And you can feel that as we're rolling up different neighborhoods. There's a sense of community. We're visiting the community while they're a part of the community themselves. And I think the public can feel it. So it was a great opportunity. And some of the comments I have in public really touched me about we're here to serve them, and our job is to make sure that they feel safe. And the police had the exact same kind of mirror effect. They really looked for them to make sure that their safety, they felt it. Oh yeah. So, and then, yeah, I'll mention this. And so that was very important. And just the other events that she slipped paper over, we're part of Prison Palooza. So Prison Palooza at CMF, it's the second annual, it's 3.0. It's really the second annual Prison Palooza. It was a great event. It was an event on the yard at the prison, and where they activated a certain amount of the other inmates. So there's a couple hundred inmates that were allowed to be in the yard, interacting, having fun, going to booths. Last year, I showed up really early, and Silva saw me in the crowd. I was probably about 300 inmates, and I ended up playing basketball, and I I realized they're a lot younger and faster than I am. So I came back. I came back. My pride hurt and lost, but some amazing concerts. And they're behind the wall. Some of the art those men displayed, some of the stuff that they're really trying to make their life better. A lot of people will be on the streets. Majority of them will be back out. They'll be our neighbors, our friends, our associates, people we pass by in stores. Sac State and a lot of institutions are doing a lot to make sure these people get back into the public with the best resources possible. So, one of the largest police forces in California are the men creating corrections behind those walls, men and women. We don't really talk about them as much as they do for our safety. These men and women take them off the street, but once it's out of sight, out of mind, only for us. But at CMF and Solano here in town, they deal with those people that we bring off the streets every day. So to see them have the ability to kind of get some notoriety and enjoy their workforce and enjoy that community, make a concert, it was a special event. And so I want to mention that, and that's about it. All right. So we will have closed session and nothing to report out. So good night at 9 o'clock, Vacaville.
Little paper there, notes on it. Thank you for
Okay.
rushing in here. I left my tablet.